Joining us this afternoon. I know that we are the last session of the conference and also the last session before your lunch. So I thank you very much for your attention, and I also think this is a really important conversation for us to be having about the role of independent publishers in the ecosystem, why we need independent publishers and what they contribute to society as well as the industry. And we have three really brilliant panelists that have very different stories to tell and different perspectives on this subject. And I'm very excited that they're going to share their stories with us all. So I'm not going to read out their biographies because you have them in the books, but I will introduce you very briefly. To my left here we have Nata Dzvelishvili, who is the CEO of Indigo Publishing here in Georgia. We then have Alexieva, who you've heard of already this week, but on this panel, she's going to be talking from a publishing perspective about her two independent publishing companies that she established. And then finally, we have Shahbaz Khuduoglu, who also has his own publishing company, which is the oldest and largest publishing house from Azerbaijan, Kanun. And one question that somebody posed to me was, it is the largest and oldest publishing house in Azerbaijan, so does that count as independent? And my answer to that is very much yes. He is an independent publisher and has managed to work his way up to being the largest and oldest publishing house. And has a very interesting story to tell us. So we're going to kick off by hearing about their stories on setting up the publishing companies, in Nata's case, joining the publishing company and what it does. So Desi, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. No. Try again, if not,
do you hear me now? Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm relatively new in the publishing industry. So I had a 20-year multinational company career, and I rapidly decided to change course. So I was thinking, what is this one thing in life that I'm really passionate about and that I cannot live without? And the answer was books. When you're in a multinational and you travel a lot and you don't have much of a time, and by the way, I have 5 kids, so raising them was also keeping me away from books for a while. And when I returned to books, I wanted to return with all my life. So I wanted to be involved in books. So I have closed a 20 years career, but I was extremely lucky because for 20 years you usually get a good compensation from the multinationals. So all my 20 years of work experience I invested in initially a bookshop. Starting the bookshop in 2018, I have started to be very picky on books. And I wanted to do some books that are not very popular in Bulgaria, books on multilingualism, on multiculturality, on Anthropocene, and our role as humans in the world. Struggling from its destroyment and destroying it in the same time. So I have started with poetry and our first publishing house, which is called Faux. This is the first 2 letters of the name of the bookstore, which is called Fox Book Cafe, and it's a cultural space. So with I'll just be very brief. We do meetings with authors, and we are specialized in children's literature. So this was very important for us because we do events for kids that are aged 0 to 3. So we're very much on the early childhood development. So after starting this high-level publishing house for people who are really on the philosophic interests, we decided to start a second one, and it was dedicated for kids. And it is called, apparently, Little Fox, which in Bulgarian it's called Lisice. And funnily enough, while it is very hard to make money on poetry and on philosophy and being small and needing to go to the big book chains and they want you to give them like 45% or even more discount, we have decided to go for a unique model. So we were selling the books through our own channels. So we were not distributing in the entire book chain. So this was a decision that was actually good for us. It was working for us because we could cater for people who are like-minded with us. It was a risk, of course. And it's good that we are not depending on the income of the publishing house in the first 2 years. So then the pandemic came and we were preparing the second book, so publishing house, The Little Fox. And we were just about to publish our first book when we were closed. Wow. So during the first month, nevertheless, in Bulgaria, bookshops were not closed. They were not people at all. And we didn't have any online shop. But what we had, and which was something that helped us extremely, we had a very loyal audience. Our people trusted us. And on the good side, we managed to publish our first book for the Children Publishing House, actually with donations. People saw that what we want to publish and they were happy to support us, even without GoFundMe. We were quite, because we are small, we were quite quick in taking decisions. So pandemia started on the 13th of March in Bulgaria, so everything was locked down. And on 9th of April, we were already able to launch our online shop. So sometimes the crisis makes you take fast decisions and makes you work really fast. If I remember something from the pandemic times, it is that I was working 18 hours a day.
Wow, wow. And it sounds like you had 8 children rather than just 5, with a bookshop and 2 publishing houses.
Yeah, indeed. And to be honest, my work consumes most of my time, I would say. Yeah, but that's the thing. When you believe in something and you have a dream, you need to live up to this dream. Which is not, I mean, I think that I'm sitting with like-minded people here. It is not very logical to invest in books, and usually the return of investment is slow and risky because you don't know what will happen with the book until it is on the market. But it makes you really very motivated to make things work, because you have put everything that you have on making it a success. So it is what wakes you up in the morning and even at night, and gives you will to continue even in the most difficult circumstances. So what additionally we have done during the pandemic, we have started our own deliveries within Sofia region. It appeared to be a huge success because people were afraid to go out and they wanted to have a safe delivery, not to go to the big courier companies, and we just took extreme care of the way we delivered to them with all the safety and health measurements. And we have established curbside pickup for customers who were just dropping by in order to decrease the contact. And we had everything with payments, etc., etc. So 2 years later, We have managed to publish around, I would say, 8 books with the children's publishing house. All of them are dedicated to friendship, early childhood development, respecting differences, and being there for the others. Books are very well perceived, and one of the novels that we have published with the other publishing house has won one of the literary awards for 2021, and we were extremely happy because to have a success such early in your publishing life is really giving us the feedback that we are on the right track.
I think there's a number of things that you've said there, but certainly having the publishing house and the bookshop gave you that ability to do the drop and deliver as well and come up with those innovative services that were much needed during the pandemic. But also, it may seem crazy to people to start a new publishing house at the beginning of a pandemic, but children's books, I know, were very popular during the lockdown as well, so maybe it was the best time to start a publishing company.
Yeah, we have received some very positive feedback, and as said, the most important thing is how you build and communicate with your audience, establishing this trusted advisor attitude and making them trust your decisions and receiving back a very positive feedback on the decisions that you have taken. So they know that we are always on the quality side.
Yeah, so creating the community and building your tribe, as we would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
We will come back to you, Desi, but let's hear from Nata about your journey into publishing and what your publishing company does.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you for having me here today. It's really an honor for me. Indigo was established in 2015, and a group of journalists actually established this company. And the first work, the first issue was a magazine, and we produced monthly magazine about cultural life, lifestyle, and social issues. And later we expanded our work. We started production of videos and some documentary films. And it was 10th years anniversary of the war. It was 2018 when our authors started to implement the project, and the project was a collection of the oral histories of the conflicted affected people in this alongside this dividing line. And when we create and publish on the website these stories, we understand that it was a unique materials because we had approximately 100 stories from the people. And we decided to publish the book, and it was the first book from Indigo, and we ended up with award of the best documentary of the year. And we understand that, yes, we can continue because we have unique materials, we have niche, we have resources, we have authors, and why do not do this? So later we continue, and then next book was a picture book which tells a story of the independence of the Georgia. It was the photos of the one well-known photographer, photo reporter of Georgia. And since then, we publish books, and our scope is kind of documentary prose and essays. We also have some translations, but still it is documentary, not the fiction one. What is unique in our case is that we have the background of journalism, which is kind of merged with art. So we spend lots of time to think about the design of the book, the content of the book, and we try to produce a small amount of titles, but all of them are high quality. So we select this way. We understand that this is not a profitable, this is not a commercial books. But still, this is what we think is important. And we have this freedom to produce books because it is not our major activity. And it is something what we think we should do. And which we consider as important for the audience. Another unique one is that we don't have the staff members. We have the freelance authors, and we cooperated with researchers, academics, scholars, writers, and so on. And we understand that we have the huge network of the authors in the country. And currently, when we plan the project, we consider project not only one component of, for example, to publish the book or to write an article, but the whole complex of these components as we try to cover in a journalistic way, to publish materials, videos, and texts and publish on the website, and then we ended up with the book. So it is a huge work, maybe 1 year work. For example, last year we published a book which is also of the oral histories, and another was, for example, essays of one of our authors and philosopher. So we think that we have the unique niche in Georgian market. Unfortunately, we are not a big company and we don't have much resources to produce many books. But yeah, we have this independence and freedom and flexibility to do and to make a decision very easy. And I think this is another advantage to be small. And of course, we would like to be bigger one, but still. We try to find some good things to operate in this market.
I think we're hearing some very common themes that everyone in this room would resonate with around freedom to do what you think is important, to publish works that you think need to be read and need to be out there, but aren't necessarily profitable. So we'll come on to those advantages, but I think we're hearing some very common themes here. Shahbaz, why don't you talk us through your journey to establishing Cunan?
Thanks. Thank you to Kwanza and Rusa that you invite me, and you are doing great job. Thank you. I come from a country that changed its alphabet 4 times in a century. You can imagine the problems that caused for publisher. First, the Arabic alphabet, then Latin, then Cyrillic, then Latin again. I have lived and worked as a publisher during the change from Cyrillic to the Latin. When the Soviet Union collapsed, which everyone wanted, we were still working in Cyrillic, but changing alphabet wasn't our main problem. All our industry had collapsed. Okay.
Next slide, is it?
Yeah. At that time, I was working as a night watchman in Azernashir. Azernashir is this biggest state publishing house. I called myself the night director of publishing house. Azernashir was rapidly disintegrating departments, and editorial officers are closing. Perhaps you know that every item of state equipment, like table, chairs, typewriters, kettles, had its own inventory number. And suddenly, this all became meaningless. So translators, editors, proofreaders worked wherever they could in the new independent newspaper and magazines. 2 of us remained, myself and the publishing house director. As I arrived for my night duty, he left. One evening he left with his usual goodbye. The next morning, newspapers reported that he had been shot in his car and in front of his home. A day later, he was going to meet Haydar Aliyev, who was returning to Baku after being pushed out of the Politburo. That's when I started the Ganun company and began publishing books. Why Ganun? Which meaning in English is law. This was because we wanted to support the building of free democratic country. We soon understood that this was not wanted at that time. I thought about changing the name, but then I found different meaning of Ganun. One meaning is a traditional music instrument, ziza, and second in Old Arabic is a book, translated as a book, or so the name stayed. The new meaning let us publish everything, magazine, newspapers, and well as whole range of fiction and non-fiction books. The largest publishing houses were left empty. The new state did not need books. And from 1996, bookstores were privatized. After privatization, bookshops were used for other purposes. So how could we sell? There was a guy called Mehmed Reza who earned money in the central Nata square by changing people to weigh themselves on his scale. He agreed to sell our books from a table we put next to him. In 2003, I began publishing a weekly independent newspaper called Voice of the Nation. I did not want to be connected to any political group. We were soon printing 15,000 copies. However, this also brought 23 law cases against me in six months. The last one was a decisive blow, because it was from the head of the presidential administration, the former Soviet bureaucrat Ramiz Mehtev. The day before the trial, a friend told me that they intend to arrest me, and he advised me to flee from the country. But I went to court, and I was sentenced for 6 months. After my release, I continued to publish books, but I could not restart the newspaper. No one would print my newspaper. Then I had a good idea. I took a loan from the bank and bought an old newspaper printing press. I contacted all the independent newspaper, and we were soon printing 18-20 independent or opposition newspapers. One day, the head of the direct authorities sent in police to stop the press. He wanted us out. He wanted us out of his area, but we continued to print. Soon afterward, they cut off our electricity. We bought a generator and continued to work. Then the authority also stopped electricity for neighborhoods, school, and kindergarten. It was winter, and of course, the children's parents complained. We understood it was done because of us, so we had stopped operating the printing house. That night, I sent a letter to international organization asking for help. I wanted to move the printing house to a place belonging to them. And one day, on the way to work, a call came from an unfamiliar number. It was Steinar Gill, Norway ambassador to Azerbaijan, saying that he could help me. They bought a separate place for our printing house. We moved the equipment there and continued our work. We were printing independent journals, including a magazine called Monitor, whose editor was dear friend Elmar Huseinov, with whom I had shared a cell in prison. In 2005, he was killed at his front door of his apartment. They shot him 7 times. They were a bullet aimed at all free-thinking people. Just I want to. Oh, it was first book edit. This is my friend Elmar Hüseyinov. Elmar's death caused great fear in society. Some newspapers were shut down, and others became more careful. They were forced to use the state printing house. I no longer published, of course, newspapers, only books, but they still tried to stop our activities. For example, in 2010, the printing house was surrounded by tax authorities. A 10 or 25 tax officers circled the building aggressively, with one group enter and another group controlled the outside. They took away documents and computers and say that I had paid 150,000 manat, and they froze my bank account for 5 years until there was a change the minister. So literary agents abroad were surprised when I paid copyright fees with cash from my pocket during book fair. So this, oh no, yeah. So we began to sell books on streets. The police tried to stop us, but we moved on from street to university to parks and other places. This streets fair got everybody thinking and talking about books. We create a very active book network. New publishing companies and book clubs opened. A renaissance began in Azerbaijan world of books. Even some oligarchs joined, seeing it as an opportunity to wash their money, but still they produced books. Thank you.
I think that's a fascinating story, Shahbaz, and I'm very pleased that you've been able to join us here today to tell that story, so thank you. I think it explains all of the characteristics around what it takes to be an independent publisher, to be brave, to be tenacious, to be agile, and to be creative. And I think all three of you have done all of those characteristics and have all of those characteristics. So thank you for sharing your stories. Desi, I'm going to come to you and ask you a question now around what challenges that you think you faced as an independent publisher that you think is unique to independent publishing.
Well, I think that usually as an independent publisher, you need to be, as you said, very agile. You need to make sure that you do not mislead your audience, because you invest a lot of effort in keeping this audience. But if we need to say one challenge, it is the cash flow.
Cash flow, yes.
Yeah, because you need to be really very smart on this, on how you invest, how you plan. You need to postpone sometimes what you publish just because you know that you need to wait a little bit in order to be stable. And you have a very little space for risking.
Right. But at the same time, you take big risks as
You
well.
take a big risk. Yes, you take a big risks, but you know that you need to live up to it.
You do. Nata?
I think the main point is that you are not sustainable. It's quite challenging is to be sustainable and to be on the same, to keep your level. Every time you have to deal some challenges, regarding financing and funding, I think, because you don't have this subsidized, you don't have this stable funds, funding, which is coming from other source. So, but on the other hand, you have the main benefit. You are independent, and your God is only your editorial policy, and which gives you this braveness to translate the author which is unacceptable for a wider audience. You don't have this bureaucracy in your company, and you be very flexible, very smart. And I think that, we are talking about the creative work, and that's why this is priceless for us, I think. If I have some kind of alternatives, I also, of course, I select this independence and less money.
And Shahbaz, we talk about independent publishing as in not part of a big international group, but we also talk about independent publishing as being independent from the state. And I wonder if you can talk to us about the challenges that you face as a publisher that is independent from the state.
Thank you, Anne. Just one example for independence. You know, our book fairs are organized by a Ministry of Culture, and during 30 years, it was just 7 times. Last one, at the 7th, when 7th book fair, they gave us just 6 square meters.
Your stand was 6 square meters.
Yeah, but we asked that we have 2,000 titles. Please give us more space. And they tell that 24 square meters, it is cost 3,600 manat. It is for us, after pandemic shutdown, it was a huge price.
Very
so we
big
couldn't
price.
pay it, yeah. So, you know, I think about alternative ways. So, while the exhibition was 17 kilometers from the city, I looked for a place in the center to make it easy for people to visit. I chose a place by the Caspian Sea. We announced that the National Book Fair was being held, and invited independent publisher, bookseller, artists, musicians, and craft workers to participate, with many writers invited for open microphone session. The 10 days exhibition was a great experience. 50,000 people came, all free without any official support. It is just one example. Imagine that the state spent more than 300,000 manat, but we spent only 5,000 manat for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
so you managed to circumvent the state control over the distribution and the book fair.
Yeah. State tried to keep in control. Book exhibition, book selling,
Right.
Everything. You know, I still, you know, we are still trying to publish free thinkers books. You know, I do pay attention any political position. With the latest literature series, I have published the work of all new and free-thinking young peoples.
Right.
We have published a book by the leader of the largest opposition coalition, Jamil Hassani, and Akram Ailisli, as well as Ilkin Rustamzadeh, who wrote a memory about 8 years in prison, his memory. Recently, we published a book by about Georgi Vanyan, who was sent out from Armenia for calling for peace. Of course, we have also published books by establishment figures, including the president. Now no one is touching us. The officials who organize the obstacles I have mentioned before are already in the ashes of history. Anyone remembers them as a contempt? Of course, there are still problems, taxes and customs, and more than 2,500 libraries were closed over the last 15 years. But I see improvement and positive development.
You still feel optimistic about the future despite all of those challenges that you face?
Yeah, of course. Recently it was organized, have been created book fairs and, publisher union. It is new, recently organized. And there are many more people reading now. They discuss and promote books. The whole environment is changing, and there are better opportunity to expand the world of books, writers, publishers, sellers, and readers. So
there's hope. Nata, I want to come back to you and ask you, why do we need independent publishers specifically in our sector, do you think?
As I mentioned, we are talking about creative work. So creativeness without freedom is not creative. I think this is quite a simple thing. And that's why yesterday I attended some sessions where my colleagues told you a story about how our cultural minister is trying to interfere in the creative work, and which is totally unacceptable for us. And we try to fight against it because we know the value of the freedom. We know the value of the independence, and that's why we try to keep what we gained in these past years of our independence as a country, and that's why we are very careful when. For example, government opened the call for some contests or some calls for proposals, because in the country like Georgia, their democratic institutions are fragile, and the ministers or the government always have attempt to interference in the creative work. We always are very careful. That's why we try to promote so-called medium organizations like Writers' House, what we have in Georgia, to be ensured that all these contests, all these projects, all these grants will be independent. And after that, we make a decision whether to participate in this event or not. Because currently we have, for example, one contest and one open call for grants, but I don't participate in it, because I'm not sure that it will be would be independent and this fairness of this decision.
And what the impact of that then means. So if it is run by the state, then the control that they might assert over the outcomes, for example.
The outcome is that control from government, because last year we had a case, then one of the prestigious prizes, Litera, which was organized by Writers' House, was we faced that the fact that the minister in the jury, there was a representative of the minister. We consider him as a censor and a censorship, because it was not it was unacceptable for us, because if you have a censor in your jury, why do you participate in this event and even prize? I don't need such kind of prizes. I need prizes and awards which is independence, which is the kind of highlight your work, and I don't need any highlight from government, because I do creative work.
Right. And Desi, have you anything to add to that around why we need independent publishers?
Even in states in which you don't have problems with governments as severe as in Georgia and Azerbaijan, you still need independent thought. You still need this diversity. You still need a way to have voices heard. And independent publishing is a way to hear voices that otherwise can be silenced, marginalized, or even just below the radar of society. And in this I see the role of independent publishers.
Yeah, I would like to just add two words. Critical thinking is what we need in the country if we want to improve as a country, as an independent country, and to improve these democratic institutions. And independent publishers are institutions who are the main actors in this process. If you don't promote critical thinking in the country, otherwise you don't have any progress.
Right. Shahbaz, would you like to say anything on this subject?
I think independence, it's give to you a chance to choose great thinkers and to publish own books which you like to publish, which you want to publish. Right. So I think independence need to everybody, not only publisher.
Yeah, it's crucial for society and for encouraging diversity of thought and understanding within society. I think that's what you were saying as well, Nata. But aside from government control and government support that you've mentioned, do you think that governments should be supporting independent publishers in some shape or form?
Sure, because it is responsible to improve the environment in the country. It is responsibility of the government. I don't think that the direct subsidize works. Of course, it might have this short-term impact, but I think that the state should work on a state level. The state should promote the market, should promote the authors. The embassies outside should work hard to promote your culture abroad. So we need this assistance to create these networks abroad. And then we do our job. And we don't need this direct subsidize that use this kind of 1,000 lari and do some publish one titles and that's okay. No, it is not okay. It is not a job for government. The government should work for long-term results to improve whole environment in the country, and it is responsibility of it.
So market conditions, like Shahbaz says, around imports, taxes, etc., and improve the environment for independent publishers to be able to thrive, not just survive.
Yeah, that's right. And you really need national policies and national policies for support and development of books. So you need to have programs in the largest extent, programs for supporting, as you said, national literature abroad, because usually it is the independent publishers, being this small or big, as yesterday Manol said, are the ones that can curate content that is otherwise neglected. However, we need to have a framework for promotion of reading, for creating environments, for having policies around replenishing libraries with new books, for public lending rights, so that everyone is rewarded, for repro rights, so that we just tackle issues about copyright and piracy.
As we heard earlier.
And if for a bigger company, the infringement of copyright can be a small thing. For small independent publishers, that can be a matter of life and death. So if we have a policy that protects in general, but not protectionism policy, just considering the books as a national asset, this should lead to more independent publishers, more critical thinking and more freedom at the end of the day. And if we talk about impact of books, if you want economic prosperity, just invest in books and reading. So this should be the thing that we expect from our governments.
Shahbaz, would you like to say anything more about government support for independent publishers?
I always say that a lot of government obstacles and help. So but as a publisher, we try to stand on and continue our work. And government has a lot of, taxes and customs and this kind of things, which is growing up every time. And but we try to do our best to increase book borders.
Reading culture.
Yes, and so and one thing that don't touch us, we will do everything. We will try to have more readers and a lot of books and interesting books and etc.
And it's a lot of the topics that we've heard over the past 2 days around copyright laws, enforcement, around freedom to publish, around taxation, import taxes, VAT on books, etc. There's a lot that governments can do to support publishing without being directly involved in the work that you do. I'm conscious of time, and I wondered if anyone from the audience had a question. Yes, please.
თავიდან დავიწყო? ბოდიშვიხდი, ესე იგი პატარა რეპლიკა მაქვს ჩვენს აზერბაიჯანელ კოლეგას მინდა გამოვეხმაურო. დიდი მადლობა ელმარის ხსენებისთვის დღევანდელ დღეს, იმიტომ რომ ვიცნობდი ერთად ვიყავით ამერიკაში, ჯერ კიდევ მაშინ როცა რედაქტორი იყო და იქ სახელმწიფო დეპარტამენტში ითხოვდა დახმარებას, ითხოვდა მხარდაჭერას და მოწმე ვარ, რომ რა ვიცი, ძალიან უთანაგზინეთ მაშინ ყველა 12 რედაქტორი ვიყავით წასული ამიერკავკასიიდან და გულშემატკივრობდი, მაგრამ ერთმშვენიერ დღეს რუსთავი 2-ზე სწორედ ის კადრები ვიხილე, დაუვიწყარი თავის სადარბაზოში, რომ სიკვდილი, რა ვიცი, მიუსაჯეს თავისი გულწრფელობისთვის და სამართლიანი საქმის კეთებისთვის და მინდა რომ წარმატებები გისურვოთ. აი ძალიან გამიხარდა რომ დღეს ასეთ სერიოზულ დონეზე ახსენეთ ის და მოიგონეთ.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, I'll continue this. Thank you. I think the panel was wonderful, and there are, I don't know, it was so right to the point, everything we heard, and it was a wonderful closing of all that we have heard during these 2 days, and thank you, Emma, Nata, all the guys. But I also want to say something. Shahbaz mentioned the name of Georgi Vanyan, and I've got really emotional. Because he was a dear friend, and he was the only one, I suppose, who had...
This is his book.
Okay, I think it will come to me. He was the only one who could, loudly say that Armenia and Azerbaijan are broadly nations, and immediately he became an outcast in Armenia, had to live to a remote village when he stayed for many years, and he died last year in Georgia. So, thank you. That was really very impressive. Thank you all.
Thank you.
As we come to a close of this session, I'd like to thank our speakers for the work that they do and for sharing their journeys with us and their insights and their thoughts, which, as I've said previously, I'm sure resonate with all of us in this room. So thank you very much for joining us. And thank you very much to the Georgian Publishers Association for giving us this platform to talk about this really important subject, which is just as important as all of the other subjects that we've discussed over the past few days. But I feel like this one has been particularly relevant and poignant to the publishing sector in the region. So thank you also to you all for joining us, and to our interpreter for her fantastic work. Thank you, everyone.